well, we'll get into it in the show.
All right, we are live.
Okay, no more talking about secret things.
Okay.
Secrets.
Okay, let's see here.
Man, I love this YouTube material design thing.
Oh yes, it's glorious.
I didn't dig it. I'm not against it. It's just
everything's bigger.
White.
Like the thumbnails, the titles are a little bit bigger. I was telling David that the chat is now easier if you have the Windows snap versus having to scroll to the right side to get to the chat.
What I don't like most, and this is kind of a weird angle on it, but I don't like that it went from having gray white. It's now too bright. It's too light. And you try switching over to the black background or the dark mode, and it's like, this is too much in the other direction. Like,
I've been using a dark mode extension for years, so it wasn't that much of a swap for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I wish they just go to like more of a median point where it's not blinding bright white background and that.
I haven't used it. I forgot to opt in because I think the opt-in's closed now. So
oh, is it?
Yeah, we got that email. Yeah.
I opted in, tried it, and switched back like 15 minutes later.
Yeah, I'm not too picky about the YouTube interface, honestly. I have my flow of things I do in YouTube. It doesn't really matter to me.
Likewise.
It's awesome.
What now?
That keyboard is awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty rad.
Okay. I'm going to raise up my monitor.
So what's the order we're going in?
You than me.
I don't know.
David, Ryan, me, then someone will step on my name, and then the last person will
okay, so okay, Jordan can go last, and that means Corbin goes before Jordan. That's fine.
Jeff asked me to carry on the torch and make sure to talk over you.
You know, it actually looks like I'm looking at the audio graph, and I probably should have been capturing it this way the whole time because the waveform looks much more dynamic. So it's probably better. That's probably doing it wrong. So I'm doing it right now, I guess. I don't know.
So really, it's Windows that saved you from doing it wrong.
I guess so. Yeah, because I always wondered why it was so quiet, but I guess now I know.
Windows wants you to have a good recording.
It only took us like 400 episodes or whatever to figure that out.
This is actually episode number 250. I'll have you know.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So no more. Like, this is the only important episode till 500. I guess there aren't really any other good numbers lying in that range.
Yeah, like 300. It's a nice round number.
I guess. 300's all right. Okay.
Wait. We're going to make it to 500. Let's think this over.
Oh, no. I wasn't saying we're going to make it to 500. I'm just saying, if we get there. All right. We have social desks. And, okay, I'm going to restart the recording. Do I sound too loud? Do I sound poppy? Like,
No.
pop, pop, pop?
Well, you're loud to me, but not poppy.
Okay. Too loud?
no.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Because I moved the microphone up, so it's actually closer to my mouth. Okay. Welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm your host, David Ruddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
I'm Corbin Davenport.
And I'm Jordan Palmer.
And no, we are not doing a giveaway for my glasses on episode 300. These are mine. On this week's episode, we have a couple of topics we'd like to touch on. I think the first one, though, is probably, we had a device review this week, a fairly strange device, the Blackberry KeyOne, and Jordan did that review for us, and I think he should share some of his thoughts. Ryan has also been using the phone, so I think he has thoughts as well.
Well, if anybody hasn't read the review, and it's kind of a long one, so I don't blame you, but basically I came away with the feeling that this just doesn't belong in our smartphone space these days. It's kind of anachronistic. The physical keyboard, in my opinion, is long gone. And then I was plagued by some really, really bad performance issues, probably likely due to my pre-production model. Made the phone unusable at points. Even after the update that they pushed out, supposedly fixing some of the issues they had. All in all, it's really, really chunky. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really thick. It's also super dense. So I have the habit of balancing my finger on my phone on my little finger, and this phone I'm trying to break the habit with this phone. It's very heavy.
I do it all the time too. It's a very natural resting position. So I hold my Pixel.
Yeah, that's how I do the P10. But this phone, it hurt my finger after a while, so I stopped doing that. And then I can't type one-handed on this keyboard, even though I can reach all of the keys. It's just
that is a problem because it thinks, because the keypad is also a trackpad, so like it'll think if like the edge of your hand touches one side, it thinks you're trying to scroll, and it gets confused.
Can you turn that off?
I don't think so.
Think so? No, because that's one of the big key features they're talking about is how you can scroll on the keyboard.
Yeah. But I mean, in general, I do like that. I think it's very convenient.
Mine didn't work. It would scroll a little bit and then catch and then go back up.
Yeah, like even after there's something up with the hardware in yours.
There's something wrong with mine because I was like, screw this capacitive thing. And originally, I couldn't figure out why my screen would keep jerking, and it was like an accidental touch on a curved screen. And I couldn't figure it out for the life of me until I looked at the reviewer's kit, and I was like, oh, the keyboard is contested. I thought only the space bar was the fingerprint sensor, which, speaking of, that is a good fingerprint sensor.
It is. It's I mean, it's way better than Samsung's.
It's almost Huawei level of fast, and it's really accurate. So I did like that.
I also like that when the fingerprint sensor is like active, like you're supposed to be touching it, the two little LEDs light up on the sides to like tell you. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's clever.
Wait, so like, do two keys next to it light up? Or?
No, there's
showing you how.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it, but
okay,
pulsating lights.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it is really cool. I was trying to capture, just nothing ever came out. But and then David, you and I were talking about this, but with how thick this thing is, there's still a camera hump. There's still a bump.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's like 9.4 millimeters thick, and this thing still has a camera bump. And I've got.
I wonder if they thought that was a style choice.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
It does have. It's like a very big like metal ring. I don't think there's any part of the module that sticks out. I think that might just be an embellishment because they wanted to do it.
Yeah, I just
seems so silly.
The style choices of this phone. I get that they're appealing to BlackBerry fans of yore, but it's just. I said this in the review, but everyone that saw this phone was like, that is a really cool but really ugly phone.
Yeah, it looks like something built 6 years ago. Like it's old.
Everybody that I show the phone to, they go, oh, that's interesting. And they like peck at the keyboard and they're like, huh, I didn't know they still made those.
People were like, oh, the keyboard, that's cool. And then they tried to type on it. I was like, oh, this
it's
sucks.
like bringing out like the horse and buggy. I mean, it is.
I showed a picture of the KeyOne to my wife, and I said, "Look at this weird ass phone," and she's like, "I don't know, it looks like every other phone." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I was like, "Oh no, hon, that's a physical keyboard. That's not a keyboard on the screen." And she goes, "Oh, why?"
Does your wife have vision issues or
no? It was just it was a picture of the phone, like it wasn't the actual phone.
I see.
So
I think that's the general reaction to this phone is, oh, why?
Yeah, pretty much. Like the convenience key, I hate this thing. There's the power button's on the side, and then the volume.
The wrong side. The power button is on the wrong side.
Did you get sent the wallet folio case?
I did. It's terrible.
It's pretty. Well, the case is okay, but the power button's on the inside of the fold.
Yeah. And the buttons
are just cases for dads.
And the buttons are like jiggly and weird.
It's like really loose and hollow.
So bad.
But I keep hitting. So I have the key mapped to Google now just because I have Assistant on the home,
Yeah.
And I swear I've opened Google now more in the last week and a half than I have in my entire life, just because it sits right where I hold the phone. So it's right. It's
Oh,
right
so you
here.
accidentally opened Google
Yeah.
now more than
Yeah,
ever
it is.
before.
It is too low. It should be like up at the top or something because.
Yeah, they should put the SIM tray on the power button side and then move the volume rocker up in this
I
convenience.
don't know what the deal is with TCL, but they're addicted to this power button on the left thing. All of their phones do that.
Drives me nuts, man. Even so, the double tap to wake works, but David, I did test this out. I cannot get double tap to sleep to work
At all.
It
At
does
all.
work on mine.
Like I've tapped the status bar because that's how it works in some custom ROMs. I went back to the stock BlackBerry launcher, tapped on a completely empty space with no widgets or icons.
Yeah, I mean
and it just won't
that's how
work.
it works for me. It's just an empty spot on the home screen, and it works
Yeah,
reliably.
mine won't go to sleep.
Oh, that is obnoxious.
But I think one of my key takeaways was that it's cool, but it's too expensive for us normal consumers, and there's just nothing to really like about it. The keyboard's a novelty at best, and even after spending, I would sit here for hours and try to type on it just to get good at it, and the autocorrect and the suggestions were terrible. Like I said this in chat, but I would tap the middle because it opens like 3 SwiftKey suggestions, and I'd tap the middle one and it would suggest something that the left one had or something completely different. Like I did respect, or I was trying to type respect or respectfully, and it subbed, and so I tapped respectfully as the suggestion, it subbed in responsibility.
And so the other thing to remember is that you can't switch the suggestion engine. You're stuck with Blackberries if you want one.
You can do an on-screen keyboard too, which when
in landscape, right?
No, you can do it. I did it. It opened in portrait for me when I first.
Maybe it's just the BlackBerry one that will only do landscape.
But for me, when the first day I got it, I was like, man, this is really driving me nuts when I was trying to type in like something with numbers, because it would bring up the on-screen number pad. And so there's a setting to disable the on-screen keyboard if you just want to use the physical one. So because I'd only have the little bit of space up here, I was trying to type something like numbers or something.
Yeah, and this comes down to the fact that Android wasn't designed with this sort of thing in mind. Like there's no, like that's the reason it doesn't work. There is no native API for like a suggestion engine for a hardware keyboard. Like there's nothing there.
The flick for if you flick up on the keyboard, it'll auto insert the main suggestion.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool as long as it's the right one. But I got in so much trouble with the stupid autocorrect because I'd be just typing along, moving on, and my eyes wouldn't look back because I'm used to SwiftKey, which knows my writing style.
I feel like there are people who still want a hardware keyboard, and for them, I'm sure they'll be perfectly happy with it because it's the same BlackBerry keyboard that people were really into, years ago. If they've been waiting for a phone that has a hardware keyboard, like there you go. It's a good keyboard in that respect.
Yeah, it's not a bad keyboard.
Just,
I don't like it, but it's bad.
I think that my muscle memory has changed in the last few years because I feel like typing on like a phone keyboard that actually like clicks and moves is so much more tedious than tapping on a screen. It's the same way I feel about the physical home buttons that Samsung used to use that like clicked, and it's just like, why does this need to happen? It could just be capacitive or on the screen. I don't want to have to exert that additional force every time I hit the button. And it's the same with the keyboard. It's just, I wish I could just tap them
I
on
wish
the screen.
were capacitive, but then at the same time, that would be...
Yeah, then why would you even bother with that? I mean, like I said, I understand why people want a hardware keyboard, and like, fine.
I don't understand it at all. I refuse to understand it. It's like it's living in the past. Like, yeah, maybe some people are like 10 to 15% faster on a hard chiclet keyboard than they are with the software one, but that's probably only because they just kind of suck at using a software keyboard. I mean, I'm pretty fast with the Google keyboard.
Losing swipe input is a big problem.
Oh god, yes. The swipe input. SwiftKey was the symbol layout. It took me forever to learn. And then you have to press the Alt button and then go over to the symbol key or open up the symbol menu. So my punctuation kind of disappeared. using this phone because it was just
yeah.
more of a because where SwiftKey and Google Keyboard have the comma and the period easily available. This one doesn't. It does have the auto insert period when you double tap the spacebar though. I used that.
Yeah.
But it just I said it was kind of it's eccentric and anachronistic in a cute way. Like it's kind of like, oh, that's a cool little phone.
Yeah.
But
it's fun to use. I like the phone and all. It's just I would never use it as my main phone.
Yeah. So how bad is watching like a video on this?
Oh God, it's terrible.
Oh, yeah, no, it's bad because
gaming on this phone is terrible.
Even if you rotate the phone sideways, then it's like a 3:2 aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So
like trying to game on this thing.
Oh yeah, no, games are not even close to happening.
Like it was really uncomfortable after a little while, so I just gave up.
See, this is the thing for me. It's just people don't use their phones in this way anymore. It's designed around like a user who effectively like doesn't really exist. I mean, maybe there's some of these people out here.
I mean, these people do exist. They're just older than us.
Exactly, but there aren't many of them. They're either like dying or they switch.
Dying.
Like it's just one of those things where you're not going to claw back these people.
You know who these people are? These are the people who bought the keyboard case for the Samsung phones.
But did anybody do that? I mean,
people did. I've seen people on the internet talking about having them and liking them.
You know who really likes this phone is Jerry over at Android Central. Like he loves this. So, but I figure if your company buys these in bulk, your IT department buys these in bulk, if you get actual decent performance out of the hardware and not have my problems, it's not gonna be bad.
And it gets really good battery life.
Battery life is insane.
That's part of why it's so hefty. Is there's a huge battery in there for the screen size.
3505, I think.
Yeah, and it'll run like probably 3 days, I think, for me.
Yeah, I got 2.5 days with standby. The standby time's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, and it does ship with Android 7.1, so better off than Samsung and LG.
Monthly security updates too. So
I mean, BlackBerry's version of Android is pretty good. I mean, it's stock Android with a couple of extra things.
Yeah, it's stock plus is what I said in the review. Yeah. That it's just.
I mean, if you use BBM still, there you go, pre-installed.
I tried to use Hub. I really did. I tried to make it work for me, but I spent probably 4 hours working on it. And I was like,
oh yeah. I remember messing with Hub when I reviewed the Priv, and the concept is when you think about it, you're like, oh, this sounds pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then you use it and like, oh, this is like a cluster. Like it's just so.
Well, my problem was I already got the notifications, so I go into Hub and be like, you have 4 new messages on Slack, or you have Telegram. I'm like, I know.
It's Hub was designed around a era of smartphones when push notifications weren't a thing. You would go into the Hub and you'd refresh, and you'd look at what was on your BlackBerry.
I remember Hub from my BlackBerry days. I wasn't a power user by any means, but I remember Hub, and I still don't have a use for it. I mean, the concept is super great, and I wish I could have figured it out to make it work for me, but.
I just don't think it makes sense in the era of the notification tray and push notifications and all of that. It's an anachronism. It
really is. That's the story of this phone for me, other than DTEC Security Suite, which is just bollocks.
It gives you a nice little meter to tell you how secure your phone is. I turned on developer options, and it was like, what are you doing with that? That's
Ryan, does your sRGB mode work?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
It's in dev options, but every time I go turn it on, I back out of the menu and it would turn off. So I wanted sRGB mode, and it just wouldn't work for me. I don't know if it was a
That's probably just a bug. Yeah. Well, the D in developer is for danger. So,
But I love it. David, you said this in the Priv review, and it's still there. There's still a check for you're running a BlackBerry device.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh yes.
Although
I will say, so to BlackBerry's credit, the Priv was never rooted and the bootloader was never unlocked. So at least nobody bothered.
Yeah, I was going to say J Case didn't sit down with one for more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I wish, but
Yeah, so they do something. It's not like they do no work on the security front.
But me being a perfectionist, completionist, I just couldn't handle seeing all the yellow and the red. So I hid the app in Action Launcher.
Oh, yeah. So you also get a yellow exclamation point if you use a pattern screen lock, because that's not as secure as a password. Okay, thanks, guys.
I guess. I mean, that is true, though. It's
not
not
like, who cares? Whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody gets my phone. There's other problems.
I guess. I don't know. See, I actually agree with that one, because if you steal if you're like looking over somebody's shoulder, it's pretty easy to observe their pattern lock. A PIN is a little harder, but probably also not great. A password's pretty tough. But I guess it's one of those like weird fringe concerns. Like if that's your issue, like you probably, if you're that concerned about somebody like breaking into your phone,
Don't go out in public.
maybe you shouldn't have like any sensitive data on your phone to begin with, if that's your biggest concern.
Yeah, and one of the other issues I had was every time I'd go back to the home screen, it would redraw. Every time. Like I expect that on some phones, like every now and again, but every single time it would redraw. And then
No, that's bad.
I got into this loop that almost made me throw the phone. I downloaded a new app. I was trying to sign into it, knew my password, but I have two-factor auth enabled. So I was going to Authy, copying the code, and then doing the double tap the recents thing to go back. And the app would reload, and I'd have to enter my credentials again, and the code would expire.
See, the last time something like that happened to me was when I was using my Moto G with the Lollipop update, which had the horrible memory leak.
Did it have like a gig of RAM, that phone?
Yeah, and I actually remember trying to do something, and I was playing music, and it kept quitting the music app every single time. I was like, oh my god, Lollipop.
In fairness, though, my KeyOne does not do that weird memory thing. I don't know. What's up with that?
I do remember I was watching Michael Fisher's review. He mentioned that he disabled Hub because it was using like an absurd amount of RAM. So I wonder if that had something to do with it on Jordan's phone.
I don't know. I'm logged in.
It isn't showing up as on my top RAM users.
You know what though? So BlackBerry refrained from changing a lot of stuff in the software, but one thing they did change to their detriment is the UI for the multitasking. It is real dumb.
Yeah.
It just sort of like it makes like a little mosaic squares of like all of your apps, but they're just like random. Sometimes the one you just left is like a giant square that takes up almost the whole screen. Sometimes it's like a quarter, and there are other little square apps around it, and it's just I
switched. So that was cool at first, but I switched to Rolodex. Like I think that was the way on. It was that way on the Priv too. The three different.
Yeah, I believe so.
From the description, it sounds like HTC's old multitasking screen where it was just a bunch of tiles.
There's three options. There's the normal Rolodex, like that's the way it should be. And then there's one they call masonry that does the different size tiles. And then there's a tiles one that's I think it's a 3x3 grid.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was like Rolodex for life.
HTC did.
But no, Corbin, my top BlackBerry Hub isn't even in my top 5 of my RAM users. It's OS first. It's using almost a gig of RAM on its own. But anyway, I don't like the hardware nav, but I'm an outspoken fan of soft keys. So
yeah, soft keys are great.
These are actually okay. Like they light up nice and all that. Unlike some Asus tablets that we've had that don't.
Oh god. Oh.
That the capacitive keys don't light up.
That was probably the thing I hated the most when I was reviewing the ZenPad, because I almost exclusively use that tablet in landscape because I would watch movies and stuff on it, and my hand would keep hitting the capacitive back and navigation buttons, and it drove me crazy. It was insane.
But Ryan, how's your backlight work? I was reading some people got KeyOnes where the backlit keyboard just doesn't get very bright. Mine actually. Mine surprisingly works well too. I had the biggest trouble of the Alt versus the left Shift key. I'd hit that and I'd have symbols instead of capitalized letters all the time. Like I could not get the muscle memory down to go.
I don't like how the Alt key. It's like nestled up right against where the number pad keys are. So when you want to enter more than one number, your thumb is kind of like pushing the Alt key, and you have to like squeeze in the other finger around to like hit the numbers that are right next to it. And it's just I feel like they should have put that like someplace else.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just I feel like this phone's going to be worth more in a couple of years as an antique than it is today. Like I remember. Yeah, well, I kind of liked the Priv, other than some of its performance issues, but because it looked like a normal phone, it was just thick and heavy.
Yeah, but I mean, but the slider made it unnecessarily clunky.
Yeah. This phone, I feel like we're going to talk about in 3 or 4 years. Be like, hey, remember the KeyOne?
And by the way, about the complaints about the heaviness on the KeyOne, the Priv was heavier. Is 180 grams. The
They're
Priv
the
was
same weight.
chunky. And the other thing about that phone is when you flipped it open, the balance would change a lot, and so the top of the screens felt super heavy because you changed center of gravity.
Yeah.
It was very strange to use that way because the bottom part of the phone, what I remember is the bottom part was a plastic enclosure. So that was where the keyboard lived. And then the top part with the display was an aluminum casing because it had to keep the glass rigid. And it was heavier. So it created a lot of weird balance issues using the keyboard and made it kind of generally unpleasant. Like the phone was pulling against your fingers as you would type. It was very strange. Like I applaud them for the mechanics of that design, but actually using it kind of sucked. I just used it as a full touch device like 90% of the time as a result.
That's probably what I would have done too.
That in the back had tons of flex in it because the back part was all plastic. Like you could push that thing in like 1/4 of an inch. It was ridiculous and weird.
For me, this is just going to go down as like the Kyocera Echo or something like that. That was.
I don't think it's as ridiculous as the Echo. That was a crazy pants idea.
That was a crazy phone, but you look back and go, "Oh, that was kind of a cool phone, but it sucked."
Oh, BlackBerry's done some weird phones. They did the Passport, which was
the Passport.
That was a square thing, like a fully square thing.
Yeah.
That would be. I mean, that I don't think would work as an Android device at all because no app would understand that. But
Well, was it the Torch that was the one that was one of the most hated BlackBerry devices ever, or was that the Storm?
No, the Storm.
the Storm was the one with the quickie screen. I know a guy who had that phone.
I know. Well, I know a guy who went through 6 of those because the screen kept wearing out. Like it would take a month and the screen would break. And he's like, hey, remember me? I'm back again.
That sounds like me with my original Droid X. I got 8 RMAs on that thing.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
Yeah, the original. Well, my dad had a Droid X. I don't think he went through more than one. I think he had it for he had the one. That was a pretty. I liked that phone in a way.
It was a good phone, but I had so many RMAs that they sent me a Droid X2 instead.
Please, like, here you go away. Leave us alone.
But I remember people giving me so much crap for how big that phone was.
Oh, yeah, I remember back in the day when that phone came out, people were like, oh, man, that's a huge phone.
It was bigger than the Evo as far as height, I think.
Yeah.
The Evo was criticized for how big it was.
Because the Droid X had the hardware keys, the really thin ones, which were really strange. But yeah, I remember. And then it had the Pentile display, which was awful.
Yeah. That's
back when they used 2 green pixels, and so everything looked green.
And it had Moto Blur, which was...
so slow.
Moto Blur.
Ugh. Those were dark days for Motorola. But at the same time, they sold a bunch of those phones. It was a very popular device, I feel like.
It was advertised really well, and Verizon worked hard to make sure everyone got one.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of really great options back then, though.
No, you had the Evo on Sprint, which was a decent phone in its time with the kickstand.
With the WiMAX.
And the WiMAX.
Yes, the kickstand and the WiMAX.
Yeah.
Key features.
And then but...
I remember... So if we want to go back in Android police history, I remember Artem had an Evo, and he would use it to tether when he was like doing AP on the train when he was still working at his old job. And he had like he was like just running AP from the train because it would take him like an hour, almost 2 hours, to, like get to where he worked. And so like every morning there would be a time where Artem would cut out for like 20 minutes at a time, a few times, where sprint coverage just dropped off. It was hilarious. He worked on like the most unstable connection in the universe every day.
It's
I
Artem.
don't know how he didn't lose his mind. It's got to be maddening.
That's probably
But
why
anyway.
he is the way he is today.
You know, I can't think of any time I've ever been on a train, not counting like subway or something like that, but an actual train where there wasn't like a big 20-minute dead gap.
Yeah.
Like all trains seem to pass through with some.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so I think that covers the KeyOne. I mean, I think that, so I personally don't think you should buy that phone.
No.
But like
If you really want a keyboard,
Yeah,
it
that's
has
the
one.
thing. Keyboard
And
people, you exist. I know. If you want a phone, this is the phone to buy.
If
Otherwise,
you do want one, just wait until it goes on sale. Like $550 is
yeah, that is a bit
too
steep.
much.
You know, hey, or you can buy right now before it comes out on eBay for $1,300.
Yeah.
That's a
wait,
deal.
they have pre-production units on eBay?
Yeah, you
I
didn't
guess
see that earlier?
I think they're retail. They're like I think they might be the European version, but I mean,
Oh, because they're out in the UK. That's right. Okay. I remember seeing that. Okay, that makes more sense. So, okay, I want to, let's talk about this for a moment in that, okay, if they have retail units out in some parts of the world, why are the review units crappy pre-production crap?
they
why is
are
that an issue?
different. I think they're different hardware. The LTE bands are different, so there's some difference.
And there's gonna be
I don't buy
GSM.
that. That's a firmware thing. That's
Well-
totally it's just radio flags.
And even if it wasn't, a lot of the pre-production unit complaints have nothing to do with the internals. It's stuff like the backlighting and various other parts that are external. None of that stuff should be different from one
Yeah,
unit to
it
the
sounds
next.
like bad fit and finish and quality
Yeah.
control, which, surprising.
I was just surprised because I haven't used a Snapdragon 625 device, so until David told me otherwise, I thought it was just not a good chip.
It is.
But-
It's a good chip in the Moto Z Play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Moto Play it has perfectly fast, and it gets really good battery life. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be a good chip if it's optimized well.
Yeah. So okay, that's the KeyOne. I would say for me, the thing I came out thinking was like $400 seems like a fair price for this phone. $550, no way.
Yeah,
It seems totally insane.
that's the BlackBerry tax. That's because BlackBerry still thinks their name is worth extra money.
Yeah. I mean, I
It's,
understand they got to be profitable, but
It's like what Sony does, where they're like, "Hey, this phone is worth $400, but also we're Sony, so $700, please, thanks."
it's only going to be on Sprint, right? You can get Sprint or unlocked.
Yeah.
Nah, I thought Jason mentioned something about Verizon compatibility.
Oh, compatible, but
Yeah, but I don't think anybody else is selling it.
Yeah. Well, I would think
So-
AT&T would hop on the GSM version.
I don't know. They've had some
don't
bad
think so.
experiences with BlackBerry.
AT&T's pretty picky with their phones lately.
They are.
Yeah, they used to not be.
They definitely weren't. They had the HTC first, after all.
Yep, that was what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna say. The
Oh,
phone-
AT&T
and also
was-
the Fire phone.
AT&T jonesed for years for the next iPhone. They always wanted. It's like, we can do it
Yeah.
again, guys. We can have that exclusive deal for the very.
I think AT&T is the only carrier that's had every different OS in the last however many years. I'm not sure that they ever had WebOS, but everything else I know they've had.
Yeah. AT&T, they usually did stock the strange phones, but I guess no more. All right, so for the second half of the show, we're actually going to talk about something that isn't Android, but just is.
God.
I know, terrifying. So there was a big announcement this week by Microsoft about a laptop, the Surface laptop, and no doubt you've heard about it. I'll just go over the if you haven't, because you only pay attention to Android things and you're only here for Android things ever. The Surface laptop is Microsoft's, what I would call their attempt to build a MacBook, a proper MacBook 13, not a MacBook Pro competitor, but like a regular MacBook, except then it goes up to MacBook Pro prices, which is weird. So they've got the Surface laptop, which has Microsoft's weird 3:2 aspect ratio screen. It has a fabric surface on the keyboard. The actual keys are plastic, and it comes in, fun colors for your fun lifestyle. You can get a burgundy laptop. Who else sells a burgundy laptop? Not Apple.
Hey, can we order me one?
It's
Yeah.
it's really ugly. The keyboard. I can't even fathom how they thought this was.
I
a
think
good
it looks. I think it looks fine. I don't want
God.
one, but I don't dislike
no,
it.
Not only does not
Oh,
only do I
yeah.
think it looks ugly, I think it's going to get so dirty and just messed up.
Yeah, that's
like
not
no
it.
time.
Microsoft
Yeah.
said it was stain resistant, but I mean that doesn't.
I mean,
say
it's not
the
even
whole-
necessarily the stain
Yeah.
issue. It's like it's going to pick up dust and like skin flakes and hair, and it's just going to be gross.
Right.
Yeah, that just does not look good.
And pressure, any pressure you put on fabric, even if it's just light pressure, it wears through. It creates denting, and that will show.
Yeah, I mean the specs of this thing are just totally not acceptable for the amount of money.
$1,000 for an i5 and 4 gigs.
Yeah, 4
Yeah.
gigs of RAM. Like you
What
can
the
buy.
hell?
Okay, look, I bought recently. I bought the new Dell Inspiron because I needed like an inexpensive convertible laptop, and for like $700, not even, it has 8 gigs of RAM and a faster CPU.
You can get a System 76 laptop for that price with a i7 32 gigs and out the wazoo. That's stupid.
Well, okay, so let's call out a couple of the things why this feels just wildly outdated. Okay, so for $1,000, you're getting 4 gigs of RAM, which, come on, in modern
Yes,
times,
that is
basically
ridiculous.
That was the default storage option probably 4 years ago
Oh,
on most
yeah.
laptops.
You can't even find an Apple laptop still shipping with 4 gigs. They don't exist. Let's see. This has no Type-C ports.
And
It has one
zero.
USB port, period.
Yep.
Which is
Yes.
ridiculous.
one USB
Why?
3.0. I don't even think it's 3.1.
It's not.
So yeah, there you go. Good job, Microsoft.
And to their, I'm not going to say credit, but I feel like this is kind of pandering in a weird way. They do have an SD card reader, mini display port. I thought there was one other port. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Well, power.
But
of
it has
some
no
sort.
jack.
Yeah. Because of course we need that.
Yeah. Microsoft doesn't have the courage that Apple does.
I'm sorry, at this point, I will any day trade out an SD card reader for another USB port.
Yeah,
There's-
for real.
That's dumb, especially because
The
most
interface is like the same. You could put the
Yeah.
USB port
Wait,
on the board.
does it
instead of-
have an SD card slot?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
I'm
it
looking
does.
at the specs page. It says it has something called Surface Connect, but
I
it
don't
doesn't.
think it has an SD card slot.
Yes, it does. This has been discussed a lot, actually.
Has it? Okay, because on the spec
Yeah,
page,
it's-
the SD card slot is mentioned nowhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
It's on the other side of the keyboard. It's
It looks like
by
when I
itself.
saw it, but I looked for it on the technical specs and it doesn't ever mention an SD card slot.
The speaker is underneath
Or
the
wait,
keyboard.
what the?
Is it
Hold
like?
on, I'm
Is this the Surface
looking at
Connect?
two
Is that
different
just like
pages.
the
One
shape?
page says it does, another doesn't.
I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and there's clearly an SD card slot on the right-hand side.
That's
Yeah.
so weird. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with some of these pages. There's a discrepancy. Anyway, so just to throw this in, another thing that's missing. This is the only Surface device that doesn't come with a pin.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
I didn't
Microsoft
think about that.
You're sure that's not the power?
Oh, wait a
connect-
minute. Yeah, I just pulled up the picture, and I think that might be the.
Yeah, there's
weird
no SD
power.
card slot on this laptop.
Yeah, okay.
That is
Yeah.
a
Okay,
bizarre power
there's
plug.
different pages that are disagreeing both ways. Anyway, okay, so that's even dumber.
Yeah, this laptop greatly confused. So no USB-C, one USB port, no micro S or no SD card slot, and then it's just like the 4 gigs of RAM. So the model they expect everybody to buy is the $12.99 model because
Which,
that's
come on, really
Yeah.
$12.99.
that's the only one that comes in all 4 colors. Otherwise, you have to get silver.
Okay.
Um,
I'm real quick. I'm looking at the spec page, and right below all the details, they show the Surface Arc mouse you can buy, which is $80 too.
And also, it looks like the
Yeah.
least comfortable mouse.
Oh
in
yeah,
the-
that mouse.
Microsoft
is,
has been peddling those Arc mice for ages, and they're
I kind of
terrible.
I like my Arc Touch, but only for small.
it's
periods
one
of
of those
time.
like it's a Microsoft like design circle jerk product.
And
like
then they
it's
also have
so
the-
much.
They have the little Surface dial too for $100 extra. So yay!
What the hell?
Yeah,
I
the
just
little
wanna-
the little circle you turn on the screen,
I kind of like
$100.
that blue one though.
I don't get me wrong. I like the colors. That's
Let's go for the
cool.
blue.
Yeah, I was looking at this laptop and I really like how it's designed. I don't know if I would like the 3.2 aspect ratio, but I like the.
I'm
physical
down
design
with
of it.
that. I think that is an acceptable thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I haven't really extensively used a computer with that aspect ratio, so I wouldn't know. But like, I like the physical design of this laptop. It's just all the internal, decisions they made and the connectivity that just it makes me wonder why. And the Windows 10s switch.
So-
Yeah, so that's
It's-
the thing that we need to discuss in more detail
Oh,
with
yeah.
Windows 10s, which is the connection to us because
Right.
it's designed to compete with Chromebooks. That's
So
not this specific device, but Windows 10s on cheaper things for the most part.
right. So for those listening, Windows 10s was the sort of big announcement at Microsoft's education event besides his laptop, and it's kind of a Chrome OS competitor, but at the same time, it's not. Basically, it's normal Windows 10, but it can't run Win32 apps. It can only run applications from the Windows
Well,
Store.
It can run Win32 apps when they are repackaged for the store.
Yes.
Right, like through the
So
Centennial.
it's not limited to the UWP thing.
Right. It's not
Right, so,
as
like-
bad. It's not as bad as Windows RT was, but it's still pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah, developers
And,
have to be
And the
registered.
restrictions,
And
to be clear, are 100% artificial. There's no
Yeah.
hardware limitation, obviously.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
All these
Oh, yeah.
computers running Windows 10s just have normal Intel processors, be it Celeron or Core i5, whatever. But yeah, the main point of contention is the limited apps. Now, as opposed to Surface RT, which is where you were just stuck with the OS, you can choose to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro. It's going to be $50 per machine, except on the Surface laptop, where it's free for a year after you buy
I think
it.
until the end of this year, until
Okay, yeah,
that's when
So
it starts costing money.
something
again.
like that.
But also, apparently, if you are using them for education, a school will be able to do the Windows 10 Pro upgrade for free also.
Okay.
Hope everybody does that.
But yeah, I mean, it's so Microsoft's whole idea here, their rationale at least for limiting what you can run is they wanted to make something that was more consistent and would stay fast and would have better battery life. And yeah, I mean, if you keep people from running like anything on their computer, then it's going to get better battery life.
Well, okay, so I think the reason they're able to say that and be somewhat truthful is I understand that Microsoft Edge is much less hard on
Yes,
the battery than
this-
Chrome.
This is true, and this so there are no other browsers in the Windows Store right now. Like if you want
Yeah,
Chrome,
well,
it's not there.
There's
But
Opera Mini,
even-
but that kind of doesn't really count.
Even if Google decided to put Chrome in the Windows Store, you would still not be able to set it as your default browser. Edge and Bing are the defaults on Windows 10s forever,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah,
And it's the Bing
Yeah.
part especially just strikes me as Microsoft being a jerk because there's no reason for that.
Yeah.
there is no way Google could ever get away with that on Chromebooks.
No, like
by
if
the
you
way.
on a Chromebook you can go in and say I would like to use Bing for all my
They
my
would get
searches.
sued into oblivion for
Yeah,
monopoly.
yeah, obviously Microsoft is quite
Well-
happy with the double standard.
Microsoft is playing on the same rules that Apple's kind of been able to skirt with, which is, hey, we're not the big guy anymore.
Yeah.
We don't actually run the roost, so you know what? We're gonna play it, and they can. I mean, it's crappy, but they
Yeah, no, I
they
agree.
now have that option.
They do have that option. So, but for $50, I would say if that gets you out of Windows jail, I guess, I mean, it feels like one of those things for Microsoft, just like, hey, free money. We will upgrade you to the Windows version that doesn't suck. But I would pay it. I mean, I would,
yeah.
without question.
But the maxed
so I
out
guess it's a
version's-
good strategy.
But I mean, look at that maxed out version, $2,200.
Oh God, yeah, it's complete
And
overkill.
it's
512
hilarious,
Yeah.
hilarious that still ships with Windows 10s.
Yeah, that's the part that just completely confuses me because, again, for this probably most closely competes with the MacBook, but that has full OS X.
Yeah, I mean, you can upgrade it, but like that's just stupid. That's
Yeah.
bad from a product perspective that you
I
tell
could
people
see-
they have to upgrade the OS after they buy your
Yeah.
expensive new thing.
I could see them maybe doing it on the $1,000 one, even though it's still painful. But yeah,
Yeah.
anything above that, it should
This-
be.
This
10
strikes me as
Pro.
just an incredibly weird device to announce as like the demo of your new OS version.
Yeah.
And all of like
Well-
the education focused things that they're going to push Windows 10s on are going to cost, they're going to start at around $200. Like, why didn't you just make something like that to sell with Windows 10s?
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're necessarily looking at 10s as a new version so much as kind of their they're very obviously pitching this as like Windows Home. Like, this is their, hey, guess what, guys? Here's the really cheap one that will practically give you for free if you need it. And then you can upgrade to a real version later.
Like Windows 7 starter. I remember when I bought my
God.
netbook.
That's a nightmare.
And you
Don't
could
remind
only-
me that
Oh,
ever
man.
existed.
Wait,
Corbin,
was that
I remember-
was that a Windows 7 thing or was that a Windows Vista
3
thing?
programs at once,
I think it's 7.
and you couldn't change the wallpaper either. You were stuck.
Yeah, I remember that. I had a netbook that had Windows 7 starter. It was awful. It was Windows jail. It was Windows penitentiary. Like, it's a maximum security facility. It was bad.
Yeah, I remember getting that.
I'm thinking of Windows Vista Basic, which is
That was terrible too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was bad as well.
I mean, it was Vista.
10S very
Yeah.
much feels toward getting you into Microsoft products that are monetized or at least generate data that Microsoft can use.
Yeah.
So, they want your diagnostics data from, Edge, and they want you to use the Mail app and all that stuff, and Bing.
And Windows 8.1 had something like this. They had Windows 8.1 with Bing, but the thing there is that you didn't have to use Edge and you didn't have to use Bing. So, once you disable that, it's just normal Windows for most purposes. So I don't get why it has this limitation.
Microsoft's approach here is just backwards from the way Chrome OS is. Chrome OS is designed to run on modest hardware.
Oh.
Like, you can buy, a device running on an ARM chip that runs Chrome OS. But Microsoft is saying, hey, this computer has a Core i3 or i5 or whatever. It could run Windows, but it runs Windows 10s. Just because.
Yeah. Well, the modest hardware, generally the whole sales pitch for modest hardware is it doesn't cost much. If you were pitching this on a laptop that costs even $600, I almost want to say it should be less than that. But if you're pitching it on that, I get it. When you're pitching it on something that starts at $1,000, the wrong pitch. It's like, hey, well, actually, it's kind of like the Chrome Pixel.
Yeah.
The original Pixel. It was ridiculously expensive, and it was still running the same software that you could run on a $300 laptop.
I mean, the second one was pretty dumb too, but those were, I don't know. I feel like those were not as dumb just because Google was saying, hey, look, here's really powerful hardware that can run this. But if you actually want to buy one of these, it's only $200.
Well, and Google wasn't outright crippling. Well, you could debate that for a while, but they weren't like crippling it on purpose, saying, hey, here's this thing. We know it can do better, but we're not going to let it. Like, that wasn't part of the sales pitch. This actually is, you could do more, but no, we're just not letting you.
Yeah, I definitely, it's frustrating to see that. So the other thing we should probably talk about Windows 10s is the fact that Microsoft wants to take on this education space that Chromebooks have started to control. Chromebooks, if you're not aware, are exceptionally popular in K through 12 institutions and even at some colleges too. And the reason is, A, they're cheap, and B, the administration is super easy. Like, Google provides great administration tools, and if you're on a G Suite, if you're at a G Suite institution, then Chromebooks are perfect for you because everything lives in the cloud, including your services. Then,
as soon as you log into a Chromebook, it just downloads all of your stuff, and it doesn't matter if you've ever touched it before.
Exactly. So if you have a kid who forgets their laptop at home or their laptop breaks one day, you just hand them a new one that's been set up for your administration settings, and they sign in and everything's there. There's nothing to transfer, nothing is lost because everything lives in the cloud, and it just works. Microsoft has tried to get closer to this. So what I understand is that you can use basically a USB key to easily set up everything to your desired settings. That does still mean you had to configure a Windows machine image in the first place.
This is still not the sort of thing that a teacher without extensive technical knowledge will be able to just do on their own.
I mean, maybe
this feels like an IT thing.
If there's a decent like wizard walkthrough experience, they could do it. The bigger question is who's going to carry around the USB keys, especially in education.
Kids will lose that.
Oh yeah.
College students, actually, college students will too. But like younger kids, keys are going to be stolen. Actually, I bet that would become the really big problem. Is they're going to get swiped. Like that's just going to happen a lot.
That's happens in elementary school. I know my sister's high school has Chromebooks. She thinks they're pretty cool.
And the other thing, so you'll never have on Windows. Windows is still a local storage operating system. You know, Microsoft can try to force people to use OneDrive, but you can only force so hard. And that kind of stuff is, it's still limiting. Everything on Chrome OS is, you don't have that option. It doesn't really, you can force yourself to use local storage on Chrome OS, but nobody's going to do that as like part of their like workflow because it's obnoxious and that's just not a good way to use Chrome OS. So,
I mean, it's handy in a pinch, but yeah, it's
exactly. Like if you need to save an image locally, Chrome OS can do it, but it obviously doesn't want to. It would prefer you use Google Photos or whatever. So it's just, it feels, some people are trying to say that this is the closest Windows has ever gotten to like matching Chrome OS, but it still seems so far away.
No, I mean, that is a true statement, but yeah, it is still so not even in the same realm. Like the approach to computing is still completely different.
Yeah. And the main problem I see with Windows 10s is that it kind of has the same problem that Windows RT had, where it's not immediately obvious what the difference is to consumers. Yeah. Like, someone walks into like a Best Buy and they look at laptops like, oh, this has Windows 10s. That's probably the same thing as Windows 10. And then they get home and set everything up and it's like, oh, you have to pay $50 to run normal Windows programs.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and like, has anybody here actually like downloaded anything from the Microsoft Store?
I picked up a couple things.
I use the Twitter and Plex Windows apps, but that's it.
I do Plex, Duolingo, Todoist, and then there's a sensor one on my convertible that I have to have it open in order for it to.
I'm surprised that anybody downloaded anything from this because it's really just garbage. Like there's so much junk. Like the top apps are Windows DVD player, Photoshop Elements, a PDF editor, let's see, an anatomy app, password manager, file bot. I don't know, is that a file manager or something? Like
you're actually making me sad right now.
These are so bad. Cyberlink Power Media Player. For $15, what?
That's still around?
Yeah, I was like,
okay. And you guys wonder why I'm still on Windows 7 on my desktop. I want no part and this. I don't want to be. I don't want to
just ignore it like everyone else does.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Windows 10 too, but
like all the games on the Windows Store are like freemium phone games.
Yeah, I remember because when I first got Windows 10, I did the local account, disabled Cortana, did all of that. So I got used to not using the store because it wouldn't let me download anything from the store because I was using a local account. So I only do it now for a couple things, like I said. But I just do.
Yeah, there's a much longer story to this, but I actually wrote an app that was going to go into the Windows Store, and I ran into complications with Microsoft. But we'll just say, but it's funny because their restrictions are really, really tight. They want to basically kind of force you into building certain types of apps. They have really tight restrictions on like permissions, what your apps are allowed to do, what APIs you can hit. And through all of it, honestly, you really can't build much better than kind of your typical cell phone app.
Right.
They want you to build. You're never going to be able to put Photoshop in there. You can't put like real serious apps in the Windows Store. It just isn't possible. I'm sure they've opened some of that up since I worked with it, but
And I refuse to buy games from the Windows Store. There's no Microsoft exclusives that would tempt me enough to buy from this.
oh yeah,
From the store.
It's very funny to watch Microsoft try to grasp on to the idea that they can do an app store, but that ship sailed like 20 years ago.
I mean, Ubuntu has had it for years, and they've been looking at giving it up.
Yeah, look, Microsoft would like everybody to download Minecraft from the Microsoft Store right now. They have several versions of it. If you could just buy all of them, that would be great.
Yeah, it's so like the only game you'd want off the Windows Store. So they have Forza on there, I think, for Windows.
They have Gears of War 4.
Oh boy!
Well,
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Gears of War.
And
They have
you know what's
a $100 version of Forza. So that's
Yeah,
and
and
I don't know exactly what game it was, but there was some major game that was released on the Windows Store, and everyone hated it because it was on the Windows Store and Steam, but the multiplayer servers weren't intercompatible, so you had no one on the Windows Store version and everyone on the Steam version.
Was it Gears? I think that sounds like.
I think it was.
I hate Gears of War. Shouldn't
a lot of
be
these
there.
games are literally phone games, like Deus Ex Go, Bloons.
It's the
35.
developers that were making Windows Phone games, and they hit the little checkbox to publish or desktop.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Windows.
Well,
Phone, that is
and-
Microsoft.
I still have my
think
Mi
Microsoft-
4 running Windows Phone.
Microsoft's
I-
big push was to bring like Xbox One games to the Windows Store. Like that's and that makes sense. It's a good idea, but
It's because the
at a
Xbox
certain
One
point
sucks.
they should have kept it separate because the Windows Store branding has hurt them so much.
I agree. It should be the Xbox Store for games.
That or just
Yes.
go
They
with
already have an
Steam.
Xbox app.
Yeah,
They
I
have an
don't think
Xbox
they
app,
would.
it's
I don't think
terrible.
they would ever let it go fully compatible with Xbox stuff because they want people to buy Xbox hardware.
Well,
too.
that and you wouldn't want to limit.
I don't know
PC
about
players.
that. So
no,
much.
well, fully compatible is kind of questionable, but they're allowing the full scale games on
Yeah.
the Windows Store.
It's
Like
just
I've got the
cross-platform.
Killer Instinct from there. Like
I
Yeah,
mean,
and-
the margins on the games for Microsoft are way better than they are for the console. The console they lose money on almost.
Yeah, they actively lose money.
I mean, they do at launch, but
I mean, I'm
eventually-
sure now it's a little better, but
And
like,
I mean, and it's
so-
easier for them to push services on the console where it's all the
Yes.
all Microsoft stuff in your face all the time. It's different than on a computer where you have to compete for their attention with.
Yeah, whereas
Well-
us PC gamers just ignore.
yeah, though I was just gonna say, let's be honest, they're pushing plenty of ads through Windows 10 these days, so
Oh god, I finally
that's
got
getting
that
insulting.
banner and File Explorer. That pissed me
Oh
off.
yes, the File
Like
Explorer
some-
one was over the top.
Like someone in the comments brought up like the ads in the start menu.
Oh,
Yes.
why
No,
would
those could be disabled,
remove
but
that,
I don't
can't
think.
you?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
You can
that
turn
could be
off.
disabled. I don't know if the one in the file manager could ever be
You
deleted.
Yeah.
can.
Well,
It's just in
yeah.
a different. It's in a different place. It's like
This is
some
the
provider
This is the
notifications.
kind of stuff that makes me realize I'm just going to buy a Mac for my next laptop.
If it wasn't for
VMware.
gaming, I'd be on Linux Mint and Mac. Yeah.
Okay, and so that actually, in a weird way, brings me back to a topic that kind of crosses both the hardware and software level. I'm recording this right now on a Surface Book. I'm sorry, but Microsoft, their support for their first-party hardware is crap. This is not okay. Like, that's one thing I'm sure people haven't really gotten yet, because the Surface tablets got a fairly okay support, but after I think the third one, the first two didn't support them. Those got junked so badly. The
Oh, I had a
Surface
Surface
Book,
Pro too. That wasn't fun.
yeah, the Surface Book is getting mistreated pretty badly. It took about 8 months to finally get it to where it was usable, and then
And wasn't
random
that like
updates come
wasn't-
out since then that make it worse.
Wasn't that a
Go ahead, what?
$2,000 laptop?
It was expensive.
It started below that, but yeah, it was overpriced.
Yeah, they're pricey. Yeah. I mean, it's still a really cool piece of engineering. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, they're trying to capture Apple's market without the stuff
But-
that people love about.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing is, though, Apple really effed up this year, so they
Yeah.
actually they
Yeah,
have a
this-
chance.
this was the
and
time
they put out
to
this
do
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the product cycles, I understand. Like, they didn't know Apple was going to screw up like this, but
No.
man, what a
I mean,
bad
look,
time
it
for them
shouldn't-
to butcher it too.
It would not have been hard for them to say, hey, look, we've made a new version of the Surface Book that is not as expensive and has newer hardware. Please
Yeah.
buy this instead of a MacBook.
Hey, what if it had USB-C? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be
What
be
if it did?
amazing? It really bugs me that the Surface laptop doesn't have USB-C.
Yeah.
It's just because
The time has come for that to be. Look, my $700 Dell Inspiron has a USB Type-C port.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're just
Well, it should have both. Period.
My
Like,
$2,000
every
XPS
laptop-
13 has it as
comes out.
USB-C, but it's like weird and broken and gives me strange error messages.
See,
But it's
you know-
there.
You know what's not weird and broken to give me strange error messages? My laptop that costs less than half.
Okay, well, you know what? Your laptop is newer, and apparently Dell. So actually, when I went to like plug in, like I was reading the HTC U Ultra, and I wanted to charge it with the laptop, it gave me like the scariest error message, like over voltage warning, unplug your USB device or damage may occur.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dave,
Okay.
was it you or Ryan that had issues with the S8 when you
No,
had
I
it
was just
plugged
going
in?
to say that was me on my desktop. My desktop has a Type C port. For some reason, whenever I plug in the Galaxy S8 to that, it like screws up all of my other USB ports. So none of, like everything stops working, and then I have to restart the computer.
It's the
Yeah,
standard
come
of the
back.
future.
And it is only the S8. Other phones don't do that. I have no idea why.
I wonder if it's a Dex thing. Just
I
Dex
don't know.
things.
Maybe it might be.
Or it's a Qualcomm quick charge thing. I don't know.
Or it's a Samsung thing.
No, because the S8
Or all
only
of them.
supports Qualcomm Quick Charge 2.0, so it's like old school.
Yeah.
Samsung's weird. So, if I were in the market for a Windows laptop today, I actually have to admit I probably would get the Surface laptop, but
Yes.
I would
What?
be resentful of the
Why
Surface
no?
laptop.
Wait. Explain to me why you would do that.
It looks
Okay.
cool.
It does
Okay,
look nice.
The
I give it that.
screen
Yeah.
looks great.
There are better looking.
The
Yeah.
keyboard looks very good.
But-
Build quality.
Okay, no, but you have to spend like $1,300 to get one that has.
I agree, and I would get the
Acceptable
13.
hardware.
I would get the $1,300 model.
You cannot think of a better $1,300 to spend on a laptop.
Oh my god, Asus MSI. You could get something. From those
I'm
guys.
very hesitant about Asus and all of those brands because it's kind of a crapshoot in terms of.
But we just heard from Cody that Microsoft sucks at support anyway, so I don't know
Yeah,
if you're really gaining anything.
MSI
I mean, if I
has got
had-
good support.
It
for all
also
their
sounds
stuff,
like
so-
the battery life is pretty sweet. So we'll have to see how that actually comes out in real
Keep
life.
in mind that's with the Windows jail. So once you get out of the Windows jail, that might
That's
be a
true.
lot worse.
Once you put on Chrome, then things get a
Yeah.
little dicier.
Ugh, on my little laptops, I don't install Chrome. I stick with
Yeah,
Firefox.
that's true. Chrome is a really big power suck.
On
But,
my desktop, it doesn't matter because I've got enough
Yeah.
resources. But
I have enough electricity for my desktop. Yeah, I think
got
we
16
generally
gigs
all.
of RAM. Bring it on.
32, bro.
Yeah, I can see maybe some niche case where this makes sense as the product to get, but you can save hundreds of dollars and get something more powerful.
I just don't like the
Or-
screen
yeah.
size. I think for me, when I use a laptop, 13 is too small.
So the only thing
I'm
to me very much too.
I'm very pro 13-inch
Me
laptop
too.
screen.
I'm the 15.6 is mine.
No,
Ooh, too big.
too big, heavy. No, don't want.
Yeah,
do not
no,
want.
that sounds bad. If I want a laptop, I want to be able to use it on my lap and go places with it. And that to me is
If you
not.
don't go
So
anywhere,
again, you want a Mac.
yeah.
No. Actually, in terms of portability, I have the best laptop that's out there. My XPS 13 has like no bezels on the screen, and it takes up a very small amount of space. You can use it on an economy seat in an airplane, even if you're fat like me. So it's like I like that aspect of it, but the Surface laptop appeals to me because I bet the screen is a little better. It's not trying to drive such a crazy resolution like my XPS does.
What is it? What's the
It's-
resolution?
It's like
2256 by 1504.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like a 1440p kind of.
So it's almost a 14.
Yeah, so it's not like trying to be 4K. So I bet it runs pretty decently, and I bet the screen's pretty solid. So, and I bet Microsoft's keyboard is a lot better than Dell's because Dell's keyboard sucks.
Did you see that you can only get the colors on the $1,300, even on the $2,200?
Well, they expect people to order that one most, so that's why I think eventually the other colors will probably get it.
But for $1,300 you get one USB port. No, get out with that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and you know the one thing I do like about my XPS is I have the I will admit, Paige Schill, I got this as a free handout at CES, but there's a Dell like 3-in-1 dongle for the USB-C port that has an Ethernet adapter, EVI adapter, and there's something else on it too. But anyway, like if you want to add that stuff to the laptop, USB-C is very capable of all this. Or Thunderbolt, or whatever you want to call it. So without USB-C, yeah, that's a tough one too.
I will be very interested in the second model.
Yes, that's a good point too. And hopefully they can reduce the display bezel, because on this one it's not big, but I'd like to see less. On a laptop, I think that's actually important.
Yeah. Because you don't have camera, and you do have camera, but you don't have all the.
I honestly don't really care where the laptop webcam is. Like, if I really need a webcam, I can use an external one. It's not a big deal.
You don't want.
I want my laptop to be as portable as humanly possible. That's my number one concern with the laptop.
Oh, my laptop's a tank.
Yeah, I was gonna say mine's a brick. I love that.
It's like an inch thick.
And I have a desktop for like serious business computing. I need a laptop to be like reasonably fast and light.
That's
got
why I
battery
like
for days.
This Lenovo Yoga 211 from a couple of years ago. It's got a Celeron in it, so it's really slow. But I put an SSD in it, and it works great.
Yeah, SSDs is like magic sauce for PCs.
Yeah, especially for Windows and Mac.
Yeah. I would say that for me personally, like the whole purpose of the laptop is to be portable. So that means size and battery life. The battery life on my XPS is, well, I'm using it in 1080p mode now, so we'll see how it goes from here on out. But the portability aspect is hard to beat. I have a 13-inch laptop that's the size of an 11-inch laptop, and that is nice, even if there are some other drawbacks. The Surface laptop, I am a little hesitant in terms of the 3:2 aspect ratio, because that means it's more top-heavy when the screen is open, and when you're using it in your lap, that can get annoying. I know, Cody, you got the Surface Book, which obviously is the top-heaviest laptop of all time.
Exactly. It really is. And I've had that issue where like I'm sitting there and the laptop wants to start like just rolling forward off the lap.
Yeah.
But that
only
is one
when
thing
my MacBook Pro does not do.
Yeah. But the only time that happened though is when you're already kind of sitting and your lap is at an angle. And if like sitting on a flat surface, unless I guess maybe your screen is bent all the way back, but then you're looking down on it like
a weirdo.
Pretty much, yeah. So hey, if you're at CES or any of these other events, weirdo is just kind of natural.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're a weirdo if you go to those.
No, everybody looks weird at CES.
You're not a weirdo with Google Glass, so you got that going for you.
All right. I think that's enough. I think we covered the bases on Windows. I like that discussion. I thought that was a good chat about a polarizing product and set of decisions. So,
I mean, I use Windows because of games.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna play The Witcher 3 after this, by the way. So yeah, I gotta have Windows.
Dark Souls 3 doesn't work very well on Linux, so. Some games do, like Coder 2 works amazing on Linux.
But none of my games work on Linux, so I have to have Windows.
It's Star Wars Day, man. You could probably get Coder 2 for really cheap.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps up this week's show. We'll catch you again next week, hopefully. we're getting near to Google I/O. So for Google I/O, we hope to have a kind of so Ryan, Cody, and I and Artem won't do the podcast, I'm sure, but
no, he will not. No.
we could have Sebastian on. Sebastian's a developer. He does a lot of work on APK Mirror for us, but he also does AP too. We could have him on, and there will also be our video host Zachary Anderson at I/O with us. We're all staying in a big house together, so that'll be interesting. So we could have kind of a localized podcast in which we have everybody at I/O except Artem on for an episode, which could be fun, I think, and that would be in about 2 weeks. But until then, thank you for listening, everybody, and we hope you'll be back next week.
And we will be on. No. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Cody. Go to sleep.
Well, he started saying back to us next week, and I was like, wait, no, we're not going to not be on next week. We're definitely on next week.
Yeah. You need to go sleep, man.
Recording. So weirdly, I was having issues with Hangouts where it would cut out.
Yeah, you were dropping out.
Oh no, I was intentionally refreshing on that, but my laptop that was recording dropped out at one point, and I lost probably 5 minutes of recording in the middle, so I have to rip it from YouTube. So,
okay. And your camera's still dead. At least it is for me.
Really? I can see myself.
Yeah, he's fine, but you did die out a little bit for me too.
What's weird is when you're in the little thumbnail down at the bottom, I can see you. But when you're talking and the screen fills with you, it's just black.
I think it's a Hangouts problem because
It's
it
always
looks
a Hangouts
okay on my end and there's no network weirdness going on. I haven't had any internet issues, so I think there's some kind of bug. I wonder if it's because I have 2 Hangouts going on the same network. Because of the laptop.
Could be.
Could be it. But the audio came out okay aside from that brief time.
Google wants us to switch to Duo for podcasts.
Yeah, it looks like on the
Oh, it's not funny because one day it's true.
Yeah.
Actually, no. I actually only lost 45 seconds of audio, so not much at all. And it can easily be ripped from the YouTube channel, so much better. And I didn't cut out at all, right, in terms of audio.
No, not for me.
I don't remember.
God, it must have been Chrome. Okay.
Sure,
And Scott
Chrome
says
or
we can
Hangouts.
see David. So
Jordan,
That's all.
are you using what webcam are you using?
An Austin 1080p camera that was cheap.
Because
on
it looks not super good.
it doesn't. The focus is broken.
Yeah.
Like actually
I
broken.
I figured it was just software compression, but
Yeah, that's
No,
what
like
I thought
your,
it was.
Like
Oh wait,
It looks fine on my end. I was testing it out with the camera app.
yeah, it's
well,
like it's
actually, what's kind of weird is the focus point seems like it's behind you by a few feet.
yeah, the autofocus software is fucked up.
It's bollocks, yeah.
Yeah, it's focusing on stuff behind you.
I went cheap, so I might have to get like the C920 or something like that.
if you ask Artem, I mean, since you've been on the podcast plenty, I don't know if this is something we should be discussing live, but
I'll stop the
If you-
broadcast.